In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve a fairly simple one-step equation, but I'm going to show you how to solve it two different ways, with algebra tiles and with written algebra. So we have got this equation. We've got x subtract 2, or x take away 2, equals 3. And you may know the solution in your head already, or you may not. Either way is fine. But first what we'll do is we'll represent this with algebra tiles. So my key here for the algebra tiles I'm going to be using, and for the sort of routine that I'm into, I use red to represent negatives. So I'll use one variable tile for my x. But then often people are a little bit not sure about what to do with subtract 2. How do you show subtracting? So what I suggest is that you think about the equation like this. You know that we've got x subtract 2. Another way to think of subtracting 2, a way that's sort of a version of that that's equivalent, is to think of that as adding negative 2. So we know from adding integers that if you add a negative number, that's the same as subtracting the number. So adding negative 2 is the same as subtracting positive 2. So a lot of people find that that makes it sort of much more obvious about what to do now, because x plus negative 2, well, I just add 2 negatives onto here. So red is negative. So there's one negative, and there's another negative. So that's what I've got on my one side of my balance. And the balance I use just to remind me that these two sides, they're equal or they're the same. And it also helps me remind me as I solve the equation that I've got to keep doing the same thing to both sides to keep it balanced. Right, on the other side I'll have 3. And my positives are a little bit yellowy beige here. Okay, with my written algebra, I'm going to just copy the equation down. X subtract 2 is the same as or is equal to 3. If you'd like to write this version, that's also fine. All right, so our goal is to have x all alone, both sort of in the visual representation with the tiles and also in the algebraic representation over here. We'd like to have x all alone on one side of the balance or on one side of the equal sign. So we'd have to get rid of these negative 2. There are two ways of doing it. Each one is equally good as long as you do it correctly. So you should choose the way that's easier for you. You could subtract 2 negatives. I don't recommend that way only because people tend to make mistakes if they're doing positive 3 subtracting negative 2. But it works fine. You can totally do it if you're not going to make a mistake. The other thing you can do, and actually this is what I would recommend for most people, is to add 2 positives. Because when we add 2 positives, we'll have 0 pairs, and these will be equal to 0. So, of course, I can't just put 2 positives over on that side. It'll make my balance go out of whack. I've got to add them over here as well. So I'd suggest just to make sure you do this, because sometimes people get thinking ahead about their 0 pairs and they forget. I would encourage you to add onto both sides at the same time with your left and right hand, just as a little routine to minimize errors. Now we'll write this down as we go. We'll write it down with our algebra. So first of all, we'll copy what we had. So x subtract 2 equals 3. I just left a big space because I'm going to write the action that I just did here. If you happen to have another color, I think it's great to use another color. We added 2 to both sides. That way you can just quickly compare and make sure you did the same thing on both sides to keep that equation, to keep it true, to keep the two sides equal to each other or the same. All right, over here we can see, if we pair these up, this is a 0 pair, that's worth 0, and this is also worth 0. So this is the one time, or I guess one of the few things you can do to just one side because it doesn't change the value of the equation. If I take away 0, that's not changing the value. It's not changing how much this side will weigh over here. So I'll take away 0, and I'll take away another 0 pair. Over here with our written algebra, we have x take away 2 plus 2, if you take away 2 from something and then you add 2 right back, you just have what you started with. So this, it's just another explanation for why this is just equal to x. All right, the right-hand side is easy. 3 plus 2 is 5, like we see over here. So this is our solution to our equation, x equals 5. It's always a good idea to check. Sometimes your teacher will ask you to check in writing, sometimes you should just check in your head. So what we're going to do, first of all, we'll copy down the original equation. If you were using this version, go right back to the original you were given. X subtract 2 equals 3. So we're going to replace our x with the solution that we think our x is equal to 5. So that x there I'm going to replace with 5. So I'll say is 5 take away 2 equal to 3. And of course, 5 take away 2 is equal to 3. So yes, it is. So that tells us that x equals 5 is a solution to the equation x subtract 2 equals 3. All right, thanks a lot.